I realized I am not happy with my results in pretty much any area of my life. I'm not happy with my relationships. I'm not happy with my job. I'm not happy with my dynamics with my family. I'm not happy with in terms of my sexuality. I'm not happy where I am with my spirituality. I'm not happy where I am with my finances. I'm not happy where I'm at in my point in my career. I'm not happy with my weight. I'm not happy with my friend group. I'm not happy with my lifestyle. I'm not happy with the house I'm living in. It's just the list went on and on of just, I'm unhappy with all of this stuff. And I realized I wasn't doing anything about it.
Welcome. You're listening to the Reprogram Your Mind podcast, and I'm your host, Todd L. Bowerly.
You think between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day. 98% of your life is controlled by habit. If you want to change your life, you have to start by changing how you think. When you change you, everything in life changes.
If we can see it in our mind, we can hold it in our hand.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Reprogram Your Mind podcast. My name is Todd Bowerly. I'm your host, and I am a coach working with clients all over the world, helping them reprogram their minds for success. Today, I have a different type of an episode for you. It's going to be a longer one. I'm going to interview one of my clients. His name is Terrell. Now, Chris is a remarkable individual. I found him on TikTok probably 3 years ago, maybe a little bit less, 2.5 years ago. He was going through his own weight loss journey. And the first video I ever saw of him was saying, I did, today's the day. I did it. I just reached my goal. And then I followed his content, and I think the next video really surprised me. He says, do you want to see one of my go-to meals that I would eat every day or often on the journey to losing 125 pounds? And he pulled up to a McDonald's drive-thru and ordered an Egg McMuffin. And it stopped me in my tracks. I went, wait a minute, you released weight eating Egg McMuffins at fast food? Like, you clearly know something that I don't know. I didn't realize that Chris was just in his first year of actually coaching people in weight loss. And so I signed up with him almost right away. I think it was early January of 2022. And worked with him for a few months, got to know him. I'm going to tell you, the things I learned from him was absolutely incredible. He's going to talk in our conversation here about his journey and the tools and ideas and ways that he thinks it's different than most people. He was able to take those tools and change some of the things in his life. He's what we would call an unconscious competent. He's not aware that he's living by these principles of law of attraction and mindset. He's doing it naturally based on how he was raised to get these results. As I was working with him, I thought, man, you really need to know what I know. You really need to learn what Bob taught me. I wanted to work with him as a client, as one of my clients. Sure enough, that happened. He reached out to me. It was actually at the end of one of our sessions. He says, I'm actually looking for a coach. And he was talking to a couple of them. And we had a lot of conversations, eventually started working with me. He worked through the Thinking into Results program that Bob Proctor and Sandy Gallagher put together for about 1.5 years. He went through the program. He really hammered it for the first 6 months and then joined my advanced study and worked in my group experience as well, which totally changed his business and really revolutionized the amount of money that he was making on his own. Right now, I want you to meet Chris, and I want you to listen closely to his story. Listen about his story of transformation and ask yourself, where am I in this story? What parts of you relate to him? Because you are probably not very different from Chris. You probably have results that you're experiencing that you don't like. You might feel stuck and you might want to do something to change it. Without further ado, please meet Chris Terrell. Chris, I'm super excited to be chatting with you again because we just did it last week on your podcast. So it's really cool to be able to introduce you to my audience. I've already told them you're my coach. I think it's really important for people to understand your journey. You think differently than a lot of people that I've met and even worked with. And you had your own personal journey beginning with your health several years ago before we even get into the business side of it. Can you share your journey, what you were like, what you were struggling with in the moment of change when your dad was passing away? And we'll just start there.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things that's happened in my life is that why Todd said I think differently, because I don't know that it would have been fair to say I always thought differently. is I've gone through a couple of, I refer to them as tectonic paradigm shifts. Like it just fundamentally altered my entire worldview. One of mine was a religion shift. That was a big one. I've shifted a political spectrum. That was a big one. But one of the things that shifted was when my dad died. He found out he had cancer, and it was a sort of a bum way for it to happen because I guess in some ways it was a blessing, but in other ways it wasn't. We got a 2 month notice, a 1.5 to 2 months, best case scenario that
Wow.
he was going to die from the time we found out about the cancer. So it was just like, yeah, it was like, no, it's going to happen, but he's still here. Like being given a death sentence like this with basically no time was a unique experience to go through as the son of him. And I know it changed all of us. And to set the scene with where I was at the time, I had always been overweight. I had horrendous self esteem issues. But deep down inside, I always felt like I was supposed to be doing more. It very much felt like it was unrealized. I didn't like my life, like, at all. Like, I woke up wishing my life was different. I was always wishing my past was different. I was just wishing I wasn't me. Not like in a being an unalive thing, but being like, it was just I wished I had somebody else's life. I was always being like, "If I'd have had this, I'd have this result. If I'd have had that, I'd have this result." I was at a point where I'd look at my brothers that were always thin and in shape, and I would just be like, "Why couldn't I got their genes? How come I got the
Mm.
messed up ones?" And I when my dad died, or when I found he was gonna die, it fundamentally altered how I see time, how I perceived it in my mind, how I perceived the concept of life and death. It really forced me to take a long look in the mirror, and I realized I am not happy with my results in pretty much any area of my life. I'm not happy with my relationships. I'm not happy with my job. I'm not happy with my dynamics with my family. I'm not happy with, in terms of my sexuality, with where I'm at with that. I'm not happy where I am with my spirituality. I'm not happy where I am with my finances. I'm not happy where I'm at in my point in my career. I'm not happy with my weight. I'm not happy with my friend group. I'm not happy with my lifestyle. I'm not happy with the house I'm living in. It's just the list went on and on of just I'm unhappy with all of this stuff. And I realized I wasn't doing anything about it. The only thing I was doing about it was learning how to be okay with it, with these very subpar results.
What were you doing to learn how to be okay with it? That's interesting.
I can answer it now with the benefit of hindsight a little more clearly than I would have been able to answer that then, because I don't believe I was consciously aware that I was trying to become okay with it. I think if you'd have asked me in the moment, I believe I would have probably said something to the effect of, "I'm just slowly giving up," if you'd have got me to be that honest. But the reality is, if you walked up and asked me, I'd have told you I was okay. I'd have told you I was happy. I'd have lied straight to your face. But it's not because I was lying to you, it's I was lying to me. I was just doing everything I could possibly to convince myself I was happy with where I was by how I talked to people, by how I talked to myself. But I literally did everything I could to make the things I didn't like to take away all the pain. Let's take my physical body, for example. I invested I spent $3,000 on 2 chairs because I wanted them to be comfortable for watching TV. They had power ports installed in them. They were automatic recliners, automatic headrests, 2 cup holders, a tray section thing that you could hook up to hold your food so I could have my food there on the thing. It had memory settings so I could control the sitting. This was movie watching luxury at its finest. There were very few chairs that were more expensive than this. And
As it should be.
I didn't even hesitate. It just seemed like a perfectly logical thing to do. And I got my mileage out of that chair. I would buy clothes that were way too big. Not way too big, that's not fair. I would buy them that were definitely too big, but they fit enough, but I could never feel that I was getting tighter in my clothes. I learned if I just get ahead of my size and just always buy slightly too big, I can quote unquote grow into it. I basically stopped socializing with people that made me feel uncomfortable with being big. Like all of my friends were my eating buddies. Like my friends, what did we do? We ate and we played video games and we watched movies. That's all we did. I had my work friends, but they weren't really friends. But then same thing like my social life, I didn't have one. And the way I made myself feel comfortable is I just said, I'm more focused on my career. I don't need friends. I'm happy being alone. If I would just go around saying that, I would just tell people all the time that I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this. Looking back with the benefit of hindsight, I see I was auto suggesting it. I was just constantly telling myself, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. I was literally trying to program myself into it, not knowing that. The challenge was I was having a hard time convincing myself that I was okay with how big I was, but I was actually winning that battle until my dad died. And it just
Yeah.
made me relook at everything, just everything, because he was who I went to if I had emotional issues, in addition to food and escaping into video games and movies. But like, he was one of my more adaptive in nature coping strategies. And when he was gone, all that was left was my maladaptive ones. And those left me feeling terrible.
I think it's interesting that we use coping skills to deal with the pain instead of removing the cause of the pain, right?
Yeah, that's what
Why
I
do
was
you
doing. Yeah.
I think that's what most people do, and most of our coping skills are maladaptive and broken, or we need to keep upping the ante on our coping. I need to spend more money on more comfortable furniture. I need to spend more time watching movies because what used to distract us from the pain no longer distracts us. We're used to that level. So we have to keep doing bigger and bigger things. It's
Mhm.
like when you go out and you drink and you have a little alcohol, you get really buzzed, but you drink a lot of alcohol, you need more and more to have that same experience. It's the same type of thing with coping skills. They don't actually fix the source of the pain. When your dad passed away, was that something that suddenly you became more conscious of? I've got to deal with the root cause of whatever the problem is. I got to deal with me finally.
I definitely didn't think of it that clearly. It would be fair to say, could I summarize what I was feeling in something along the lines of what you said? Yes, that would be accurate. If you were talking to me at the time, and I know because I have a video of it because I started video journaling. The way I described it is I'm just unhappy or I'm sick and tired of not loving my own life, is really what it was. And I had become aware that when my dad died, like, all of these things weren't actually helping, but the thing that just kept ringing in my head was, "I'm going to die." Like, it didn't click in my mind that I was going to die until I watched someone have a death sentence, and I watched them contemplate their life, and that caused me to contemplate my life, and I'm just like, "What am I doing? I'm doing all these things to make everybody else happy, but I'm not doing anything to make me happy." Because I was convinced that if I get enough people to like me, I'll like me. It just never was enough. No matter what, it was never enough. And I was always saying, if I got X result, I'll like me. I'll be happy. And then I'd get that result, and it would come time to give myself permission to like myself, and I couldn't do it.
We're going to circle around there because you've had, just to tease people, you've had remarkable changes. Let's actually just shortcut and just give a taste of the results of your transformation after 5 years. Give people a sneak peek at the end journey, and then hopefully we'll walk our way there throughout the rest of this
Oh,
episode.
okay. So yeah, this will be fun. There's a video, and I have it, where I said, I am nuking my life. And when I say nuke my life, I mean I sold 80% of everything I owned over the course of 6 months. I quit my job and went to get a different one. Like a job from my father's company I'd been at for 10 years, which is unusual for my age, but I was there for 10 years. I got divorced. I came out of the closet, so to speak, and basically just expressing to people in my life about my sexuality. I decided I'm going to start getting my finances in order. I basically stopped spending money on certain things. That was part of the selling things too, is to reduce my need for bills so that I could redirect that money in a more beneficial way to my future. Because I was just spending. I was just spending, but I wasn't building wealth. I wasn't building my financial future at all. I started going out and making friends. I started doing the deep emotional work, and I started working on my health as well, my mental and emotional health, both, and my physical health on top of that too. I do think mental and emotional health, while the same, I think of them separately
Yes,
because I think of my mental as
100%.
like my mental instrument and my emotion as the experience of being me, if that makes sense. And my
Absolutely.
spirituality. By all accounts, I was unhappy with just about every area of my life. To now, 5 years later, I genuinely can say it. I have not uttered the phrase, "today was a bad day," in over a year and a half. I've been consciously aware of that. I've had truly horrible days, like a lot of bad things happened in them, but I couldn't say it was a bad day. It was still a good day. And I look at my life, I love my job. I love my financial situation. To quote Bob, I love his phrase. You have to use a telescope to see where you were. My financial picture is light years ahead of where I used to be. I could just stop working for a year and just not work, and my life I wouldn't notice. And there's a whole fun story how I made that happen, but I'm in the relationship of my dreams. My life is better than it's ever been. My social life's better than it's ever been. My home life's better than it's ever been. I love my house. Literally last night, my wife and I were just sitting there talking about how much we just love our house. We love what we're doing with it. We're making all these exciting plans for the future. My health, I'm turning 40 this year. I rival most teenage boys I know because I have a stepson and I can run circles literally around most of his friends. And I'm stronger than half of them. So I'm turning 40 with the best body of my life that is better than most teenage bodies. And my mental health has never been better. My spiritual health has never been better. My emotional health has never been better. My relationship with food is better. I'm not emotional eating. I was a victim to my emotional eating vices. Those are better than they've ever been before. Just all across the board for me, it's all green. And in 5 years, I
So
was able to do that.
so 5 years ago, what was the state of your health? How much did you weigh? And how much activity
I was
did you do?
290 pounds, diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome that they couldn't find a cause for, but it was debilitating. I had debilitating acid reflux. It was really bad. I used to have to get my esophagus stretched because I would develop these rings and I would swallow food and the food literally wouldn't go down. And so I'd have to get an
Mhm.
endoscopy where they stretch out my esophagus to expand those rings. I was losing my hair because of how stressed I was. I would develop these rashes on my head, stress rashes from that's what the doctors do. They're like, you got to get your stress down. I'm like, how? And I wasn't diabetic. My doctor said if I keep going on the track I'm going on to, I'm knocking on the door of pre-diabetic. I don't know what that means to be honest, but that's what he told me. But it didn't
Right.
do any good. I didn't change. It did nothing to scare me. And I remember one of the last moments that kinda made me say I had it. I looked out my window and saw water was pouring over my gutter, and in Kansas City, where I was living at the time, it had a split level and had a leaky foundation, so I was like, "This isn't good, I gotta fix this right now." So I go out and I get a ladder because I can't have this water pooling next to my house, and I had to climb up a ladder, just an A-frame 8-foot ladder. I had to climb up it 6 times to clean out a gutter, 6 times. And I was so sore from that the next day, I was popping cramps in my leg walking upstairs. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, I cannot be this out of shape. That climbing my ass up a ladder 6 times left me that sore. And I didn't even go over the top. I was on like the 4th rung. I was so out of shape. I couldn't stand on my feet for, I don't know, longer than 20 minutes before I'd have to sit down. I would just be hurting too much to be doing that. I never saw the inside of a gym ever. A long walk for me was 20 minutes around the block. That was considered a long walk by all accounts. And now I'm coming back from an injury, so I haven't in a little bit, but I'm getting back up to it. But now I run ultra marathons. To put it in
How,
context, like
and what's an ultra
20-minute walk
marathon?
to so an ultra marathon is any distance greater than 26 miles. So I have run a 50K, which is 31 miles, and I went for a 50 miler, but I DNF'd, which is did not finish, and I made it 37 miles. I made a fatal error. My feet got wet, and that came back to bite me in the butt. I think I was in good enough
And
shape otherwise.
your weight. You've been maintaining your weight for over 2 years now, right?
Oh, yeah. So I guess to add that, I was the chronic yoga diet guy. I mean, I was always chasing some new fad or getting ready to talk about it, but I would lose it and gain it back faster than super fast. But it was yo-yoing up and up. So 290 at my biggest, and it took me 2 years and 2 months to get to 165. And I stayed between 165 and 170 for 2 years, like, on purpose. I said, "We are staying this way," because 'cause I'd never maintained my weight after weight loss ever for more than about 5 minutes. And so for me, this was a huge deal. I said, "I have to maintain it for longer than it took me to lose it." Once I had crossed that line, I allowed myself to start doing what's called recomping, where putting on more muscle mass and playing a bit more with the composition of my body. So right now I'm at 172. So I'm just a teeny bit above that window, but that's because I've been trying to put on some muscle mass and I'm doing it real slowly. But by all accounts, I'm maintaining my weight loss.
And that's not the only thing you've changed. You talked about you're remarried again, and you also like what were you doing when your dad had passed away? You were working for his company, and what are you doing now?
So I was in commercial janitorial. I got started in that industry when I was 15. My dad had started a cleaning company and I worked in his company. So I worked my way up through the ranks and made a whole career of it. Went to work for many other companies and really enjoyed the work. I found if you're a smart, competent person, you can do really well in that industry. And it helped that I had amazing mentors and I had my father's business that didn't, I'm not numb to it. I'm aware that gave me opportunities. I still had to capitalize on it. Like, I have 5 siblings. Like, we didn't all capitalize on this. I was the only one. And so I really capitalized on it. But after 23 years, it was interesting. After my dad died, I don't think it's a coincidence that pretty soon, within a couple of years after that, I left the industry because I think I may have been trying to do that to please him, but I never can know. I'd have to go back and ask me, but I believe that's what it was. Now I have left that. I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur and work for myself, and I just was too scared to do it. And I finally found the courage to pull the trigger to quit my job. And I originally was going to start my own cleaning company and do weight loss coaching on the side as like a side hustle money, so I didn't have to draw money
Right.
out of the janitorial company. And I was talking with somebody, and they asked my plans. I was telling them, and they're like, "Man, I think you're gonna have to make a decision." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, I think you're gonna have to make the decision on the weight loss coaching part probably faster than you think." He was not kidding. Within 2 months, I had to shut it. I literally just I all I did was spend money to set up a janitorial company, get one account, and then I had to shut it down because the coaching business was taking off. And I was like, "This is my shot. This is my only shot. I gotta take it. I can't guarantee my life situation will align so perfectly again." The door was open, so to speak, Todd, and it was
Yeah.
time to walk through it or the door was gonna close. And I just walked through it and pulled the trigger, and now it's been a few years later, and it's been one of the best decisions of my professional life, was doing that.
So let's ask concrete questions. What were you making in the janitorial company and how is your business doing now?
When I was finished at the janitorial company, I was drawing a base salary of 100 and no, that's with bonuses. So it was about 115, plus I would easily clear about 20K in a bonus. And then commissions were not capped, and I did all the big stuff. I was only there for a year. I was projected the following year to do 160, and it had plenty of perks that came with it too. It was on paper, by all accounts, it was an absolutely incredible job for a great company to work for, but the dream was somewhere else. But I was terrified to leave because I was like, it's taken me 23 years to get here to this point. And here I am. I was the vice president of the sales department. So I ran the sales department for a company.
And how's your business
And
now?
it's weird when you work for yourself because you don't earn your money the same way. I've had to learn all this new stuff about working for yourself. It's great because before I was an employee with bonuses and commission structures, and now I'm a business owner. And so I guess the best way to describe it is my lifestyle is basically the same as it was before. I've been able to replace the lifestyle. Really, in the last year is when that transition has been more coming to where I'm looking around my life and going like, okay, I've made it back to where I was. And I was terrified. I was convinced that I could not shift careers and get to where I was in anything less than 5 or 7 years. And I did it in 2.
Not only that, let's be honest, you're on track this year to probably build more than you ever were going to make as in janitorial, right?
This year, I'll surpass what I did before. Yeah. Like, my lifestyle will have the ability to surpass it. It's different now because in the past, I was not thinking of my future. So a lot of my stuff now is built on building my financial future and more wealth building rather than just earning and spending. That's been a big paradigm shifter for me, is start adding that into my life. Should have done it sooner, but I'm doing it now.
Are you comfortable with sharing like what your business grosses on a monthly basis?
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable grossing it just because I'm pretty sure I have clients that listen here in the business, but I could say that I comfortably in 6 figures. And this is comfortably in 6 figures. And as far as business models, when I first got into this, I was doing a 1-to-1, and I was doing I had to chase clients. Now I have a service business where we have a community and it's an education platform and a group coaching platform, and it's all integrated. And now I have monthly recurring revenue, which is the big shifter. So I actually have, not only was I able to get to where I work for myself, now I work for myself and I have the same stability that I had as an employee of a steady paycheck, which was huge because I didn't know I was going to get there, but I have predictable income for my life. I was able to
And
where I'm set up as an S corp, so like I can draw a salary, and really able, by all accounts, to stabilize my life. just as when I was a W-2 employee. So I was able to re-find that safety just with my own business.
And how many clients do you have working with you on a monthly basis?
Right now we're fluctuating between 450, 500. There's some variability from month to month, but that's about where we're floating
Awesome.
right now. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Let's flash back to where your dad was. Dad was passing away, and you're like, I'm going to nuke my life. And you had your divorce, you changed your lifestyle, but you hadn't quit your job yet. But tell me about that health journey. How long? You said 2 years and 2 months to release all of that weight down to 165, right? What
Mhm.
was that journey and transformation like?
This was a very interesting shift for me because it was a very conscious choice. Like, I have vivid memories of sitting at my desk and planning and thinking of my philosophies. I have drives that I remember what I was looking at when I would have the thought of, "This is what I've always done. This is the new thing." I was choosing to think differently. And I can trace all that back to one key thought. I'm a recovering workaholic. One of my vices in the past was working. To put it in perspective how bad it was, when I found out my dad had less than 2 months to live, I went back to work. My way of getting through that was to go work, which is ridiculous. I should have just taken a sabbatical. I should have taken FMLA. I should have just quit my job. Like, whatever it took to go spend every single second with my dad that I could. I didn't. I was a workaholic. It was bad. I bragged about my ability to work 70, 80, 90 hours a week, basically indefinitely. I could easily work 7 days a week for 6 months straight. I say easily. I also was becoming fatter and fatter. My mental health was going terrible and my hair was falling out and my life was a hot mess. So maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was, but my career was doing really well. And by all accounts, even though I was miserable. But one of the things that happened with being a workaholic is I acquired a lot of work skills. And I was very comfortable taking on incredibly and challenging projects that were going to span multiple years and have multi-million dollar budgets. I was really comfortable with that. Super comfortable. I remember I was given a project to replace all of the software for the entire company. This is when I was the director of business systems. Everything, including with the exception of our email system, but even our phone systems had to be swapped. And it was a massive project and I had 2 years to do it. And I thought it was fun. The idea of doing this with a fully functioning company with 1,100 employees covering 7 states and $30 million in revenue and like handling all of this, like just excited me because of the complexity of the project. I prided myself on being a problem solver. What I would literally go around telling people is, I want the problems that no one wants. That's the one I want. I want the one that will keep me up at night coming up with solutions. For a workaholic, it was like crack. Um,
It's fun. It's
it,
flow. It's
It was. Yeah, I wasted away working. So I'm sitting there looking at my health and I'm like, why am I not approaching my life the same way? I have this whole framework that I use when project planning. I have all these philosophies and principles I use to get me through multi-year change initiatives, and I'm not using any of them in my personal life. Not a single one. And I
why?
just like, I
Why?
gotta change.
What's the gap? Because what you're saying makes perfect sense. I'm glad you said it because otherwise I would have asked the question to get there. You took that ability to analyze a problem, pull it apart, reorganize it, implement new things, monitor the results, adjust and tweak as you go to get the result that you want. Why had you never used those skills for your life? It makes perfect sense probably to most people, but what blinds you to that opportunity?
At the time, I didn't know. I had no idea. It was a very humbling realization at how obvious it was at the time and that I had never considered it. I just never considered it. And looking back, still trying to fully understand why. I think I understand the mechanism, like if I just how hard it is to shift a paradigm, for example, like it's just hard. As in there's a process and I was not very good at doing it consciously. But some of it was I was changing a multi-decade old way of living. And with that old way of living came all my old logic and all my old belief systems. I genuinely believed I won the genetic bad lottery. I just believed I was just gonna be a big guy. Like, I didn't think I could change. I thought that I was just stuck this way. And so a lot of it really, if I boil it down to like just a handful of reasons why, beyond I just didn't think of it. But I think part of why I just didn't think of it is I think I would just dismiss it because I just didn't think it was possible, really. And so what I was looking for was that shortcut or that solution that works for broken people. Oh, me, see me, I can't lose weight. I have to do some crazy, strange thing to lose weight. I can't just diet and exercise to lose weight. I have to go to a doctor, be prescribed appetite suppressants, and eat 800 calories a day in puddings and shakes that I buy from this doctor. And I got to go see him once a week for him to test my pee to make sure I'm in ketosis. And if I'm not, he's going to sit there and yell at me and tell me if I don't keep doing this, I'm not going to lose any weight. And that cheating one day is enough to make this not work. I just thought I was broken. Doctors are telling me I'm broken. My family's, or I guess my family wasn't, but no, everyone around me was reinforcing the belief that I'm just going to be a big guy because I don't like to eat healthy. If I liked healthy food, I would change. I don't like exercising, I'd tell myself. I hated exercising, I'd say. I would regularly talk bad about exercise, even though I hadn't done it in 10 years. I didn't know.
Tell me if this makes sense, because I think this is what it was. I think that you were living unconsciously for those first 35 years, unconsciously on autopilot, not really thinking
100%
about your
agree.
life, not thinking about thinking, right? And when your dad died and you saw your life as a problem to solve, that's when you became consciously involved. And it's probably for the first time in your life, became consciously involved in deciding and designing your life. Is that accurate?
Yes, I very much was raised in that my job is to fulfill the role that I was born into. I was supposed to live a life that wasn't mine to pick. I like how you worded that. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, how you just did it, of I was unconscious and then I was conscious. And perhaps you're right. Yeah, it was the beginnings of me, of my awakening to my actual reality. And part of my actual reality is I can change. But the other part that really pushed the change is I was in so much pain just being where I
Yeah.
was. I didn't want to be where I was anymore. I didn't really care where I wanted to be. I just couldn't be there. But there's a saying, is it Confucius that says it? First heard it from Tom Hiddleston, the guy that plays Loki in an interview. So I don't know where he picked it up
Right.
from. He says, we all live two lives, and your second life begins when you realize you only have one. And that's really what it was, is when my dad died, I realized I've only got one life and I'm going to die. And I could die tomorrow. And wouldn't it be a shame to die tomorrow going, if only I had just tried?
You said I felt like I was born into somebody else's life. The life that you were living wasn't your own. I think a lot of us have that when, and society does that. Society gives us a lot of goals and benchmarks, right? Go to school, pass this test, go on to the next grade, graduate high school, graduate college, get a relationship, start a career, buy a house, get a dog, get some kids, and then retire. But in your context with religion as well, it felt like so much of your decisions were not your own, right? Can you talk a little bit more about what was the default that you felt you had to live into?
Yeah, having my father cast a big shadow, which was
Mm.
a wonderful thing and a difficult thing. It was a wonderful thing because it gave me a lot to aspire to, but it was difficult because it gave me a lot to live up to as well. And for whatever reason, I was trying to become what took him 55 years to do in 5. And of course, I always failed at that because I wanted to be like my dad, but I couldn't be like my dad because I hadn't been alive as long as him. I hadn't done what he had done. I had mistakenly thought that if I just learned everything he had to tell me, I could be as good, failing to see that I needed to also have his experiences or my own versions to understand, because I didn't grasp that some concepts cannot be learned in a book. They cannot be learned by talking about it. They cannot be learned by watching a movie. They can only be learned by living it. It's the only way to learn it. It's like love. The only way to know what love is to love someone. Plain and simple. Only way to do it, because words fail. Or a simpler way I look at it is the only way to know what salt tastes like is to taste salt. Anything else falls woefully short of just tasting it. And I mistakenly thought I could just learn it all in a book, and always trying to just measure up to, I really thought I shouldn't disappoint people. It was important to be liked. I had picked up this belief somewhere. I don't know where I picked it up, but you got to be liked. You can't You can't disappoint people. And so for whatever reason, I would look to the person in front of me, try to figure out what it is that they want, what I believed they wanted, and then I would attempt to be that for that person in front of me. But that just left me unhappy, especially when I was doing that different with different people. And then I couldn't really keep up with all these different versions of me. And it just became exhausting. I described it as like I had all these masks that I was wearing. I'm like, oh, this person's put this mask on. Oh, take that mask off. You get this mask. But it was all hiding me. But the challenge was I had been wearing masks so long that when I looked in the mirror, I had a mask for there too. And so I didn't even
Yeah.
really know what it is I wanted. I literally did not see myself for as big as I was. Like when I look at pictures of myself now, I look bigger than how I saw myself. I just couldn't perceive it. I had a friend, his name's Daniel. He one time really got in my face. He's, man, you need to know what you're worth. You got to stop letting people walk all over you. And my first response was to defend why I'm letting people walk all over me. That was my first reply. Rather than being like, yeah, man, you're right. I should stop that. But I was really, and then with my religion, I was told how to think. I was told how to act. I was told what to eat. I was told what things I had to abstain from. I was told how I'm supposed to love people. I was told how I'm supposed to get into relationships. I was told if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my life's going to play out this. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my life did not play out that way. So the only thing was
What's
left
your
for me to
religion?
think was to think that I was broken.
What was your religion? Let's be open.
Oh, I was raised Mormon. Yeah, I was born a Mormon. And look, this isn't to like knocking. Hey, look, if it works for somebody, bless you. Great. For me, it didn't. For me, it left me damaged. I'm at a good place with it now. I'm at a place now I don't regret my days in it, but I do acknowledge that I'm glad I'm not in it anymore. We'll put it that way. I don't miss it, but I'm okay with the fact that I was in it because it did give me a lot of good things. So things that did, in fact, make my life better. But it put me and maybe we all have our thing, and maybe this was just mine. But I had to break free from that, and I had to break free from so much of my youth and childhood and young adult years to go, what kind of life do I, Chris Terrell, want to live? Not what do I want other people's, or what do I think other people want me to do?
So is it fair to say maybe you didn't even really, since you had that mask on in the mirror, you didn't even really know who you were or who you wanted to be?
100% fair. I had no idea. I had no idea. I just know who I didn't want to be.
And I think that's enough. I think that pain is always a stronger motivator for us than what we can be or what we can have or what we can do, because it's more in your face. It's more present. Like every day you wake up with that pain and you're confronted with it. And that pain has monopolized your mind so much that the dream of what it could be just seems like a fairy tale or a waste of time to even discuss or think about. Was there a point in your journey before you became a coach when you started to find yourself?
Yes, it happened very quickly. So what was interesting, so talking a bit about the program that I went through with you, the Thinking of Results, there was a very important realization that helped. It's when Bob explained the concept of what drives a paradigm shift. And he mentioned the repetitive, constant spaced repetition and everything, but he talked about an emotional impact, a shock that just changes you suddenly. That's what happened the moment my dad died. Like the moment that happened, my life changed. And leading up to it, there were lots of little paradigm shifts that were occurring. And it just created this perfect storm of shift within me that there's a few paradigm shifts I've identified at this point as just trying to unpack my own life. There's been a few that I've been able to identify that were instantaneous for me. And I didn't go through any sort of conditioning or reconditioning to get myself to think it. It's just literally, I just woke up thinking differently. And it's at the time seemed inexplicable why that happened. And so I literally, the first time I started, like after my dad died, I was back in Kansas City the following week after the funeral on Monday, swimming in the pool, imagining the body I'm going to have on the other end of this weight loss journey. I literally went into a photo and took a picture and I said, this is my before picture. I will not stop until I have an after picture next to it. And it terrified the shit out of me to do that. Like I was so scared to do it. Like I actually went in there with my shirt off and I held up the camera and I looked in the phone. I was like, I can't take this picture. I couldn't get myself to do it. I wished so badly I had done it, but I was too scared. And I went and put on a tank top that did not hide. I bought that tank top very intentionally because it hung on me a certain way that hid how big I was. But I took that photo and then I would imagine, not only would I imagine what it looked like, I would start imagining the life that I'm going to be living with that body. I would imagine that body in activities. I would imagine what I was thinking about myself. I would imagine how it looked. But the way I described it is at first, it was like trying to look underwater at a person in the distance without goggles. Like you can see it's a person, but it is just
Right.
shapes at best, like in hazy and unclear. And it's even as I got close to it, there was still no detail. Over time, I eventually got goggles and I could think of it that way. But right away, I was moving towards a very clear vision in my mind of what I wanted myself to look like. And I literally just woke up one day and and I started moving towards it. And it just was there. I don't know. I don't,
Did
I believe it's because my dad dying, but something happened that put it there.
it is. It's that emotional impact that fundamentally changes you. And you followed up with a clear decision, a committed decision that you are going to break ties with how you've always lived life. But how did you know to create an image of not just your body and what it would be like, but the life that you wanted, to use our imagination to build pictures? That's one of the greatest powers. In fact, it's chapter 3 in Bob's book is the image maker. We have this image making faculty that we can use. And as we create images, those images are impressed through repetition and emotion into our subconscious mind, and we become what we image. Had now looking back, you can see that. And this is one of the things when we started our engagement, I said, I don't think you realize how you had the transformation you did, but I can show you how to do that so that you can then help clients and then leverage it with intention for your life. But to that point, did you know what you were doing, or were you just unconsciously competent at building that image and working towards it every day and keeping that in your mind?
It's a mix of both, I think, because I know
Okay.
where I got it from, but it was also a bit of I got lucky. One of my favorite personal development books and business books is actually under the auspices of how I read it was I'm going to use this to apply to business, not I'm going to use this to apply to my life. Was
Hmm.
Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I read that in high school. And the habit begin with the end in mind has always sat with me. And so in business, I learned, and all my mentors reinforced this with me, craft a vision of the end and then work backwards. And then every
Yeah.
decision you make today, ask yourself, does this take you closer to or further away or make no change in relation to where you are to your vision? And it made it
100%.
really easy. Yeah. So I'd done it that way for decades at work. So it was when I sat down to look at my weight loss more from a business standpoint of, okay, this is a business project. What are my principles? Well, begin with the end in mind. That's been old faithful. What's the end look like? And I'd never done that before. I'd never sat down at the beginning of a weight loss journey and contemplated the end. Like when I'm done, when all the weight's gone, what does that look like? I had never pictured it ever. And I realized right away, I didn't know how to picture it. I had to borrow from other people's experiences, which is why that image was so hazy. I just didn't know what
Yeah.
it was going to look like. I crossed 200 pounds as a freshman and never saw below it again. So my weight never had a 1 in front of it as an adult. I had no idea what I was going to look like. So there's some of it was from that. But one of the things that I loved working with you, there's one line that made me decide. It was the one line you said, I've shared with you before. It's when you said, and you were just touching on it, you don't know how you did what you did, and I'm going to teach you how you did what you did, to something to that effect. And I was like,
Yeah.
yes, that's what I'm looking for. Because I knew a lot of what I did, but I knew that there was a lot I didn't know that 100% mattered to me getting my result. And if I were to teach other people how to do what I did, I needed to learn where I got lucky. Both and lucky I did something I should, and lucky where I didn't do something that I shouldn't be doing, because both were the case. And so this is also an area where I think I just got lucky in working with you, where I began to understand the importance of daily holding in my mind the vision of the end every single day, so I could begin to understand how that was shifting my self-image. I didn't understand that self-image shift. I had no concept of it at that moment.
I want to disassemble lucky, because it's when we say lucky, it's about chance. I stumbled upon something, but you've talked a lot about your father being your number one mentor in your life. And he thought differently than most people. And he was teaching you these lessons or principles. You got into personal professional development with the support of your father because of his background, because of what he gave you. So I don't know if that's lucky as much as it is just cause and effect. The environment that you were raised in, regardless of the religion and all the expectations, was favorable to this transformation, but all that power was there and you couldn't recognize it. Does that make sense?
I'd agree. Yes, I should amend what I said and replace the use of the word lucky with my preferred phrasing is where I was unconsciously competent. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a conscious choice. Like, I'm going to do this because this is why it works and this will lead to that. It was just, I need to do something. My brain said, do this. I'm not going to question it. Let's do that. So, intuition, as it were. 100% you're right. It came from that background. Like now, where I look at my days in Mormonism, I'm like, a lot of good in my life has come from what I learned there, and that's okay. And so, with regards to this, yeah. So I guess it's not that I was. It's what's the saying with lucky, where it's like hard work meets preparation or something like that. It was definitely one of those. It wasn't like blind luck or anything like that. It was very much I did the right thing, but not because I was picking between these 6 options and I fully understood why this one was the one. It was just I didn't know what to do, so I guessed.
And also the community that you've built for your clients is such a huge selling point. Our environment matters. Our environment shapes us with who we work. So, yeah, maybe from one perspective we can say lucky or call it a privilege even of the upbringing that you had that built the foundation for a transformation. But if you do not have that environment, if you don't have a supportive environment, if you don't have people around you, parents or those you've grown up with, teaching you about how to think or how to improve things, even if it's not your life, how to improve your business, you have to find a community, don't you? You have to change your support circle, don't you?
Yes, your support circle and your environment that you're in. And something just came to me when you were just talking right there, like where I would use the phrase lucky, but maybe it's not. Let me tell you this what happened. So I mentioned earlier, I sold like 80% of my possessions. I didn't know at the time how that was actually becoming an instrumental choice in helping me overcome emotional eating. I didn't know. I didn't know I had an emotional eating problem. In fact, if you had asked me, I would have told you I didn't. I would have just said I like food. And I don't know why I get big. Like I would not have said I'm an emotional eater, and I very much was. And part of why I was emotionally eating is because I was stressed. And part of why I was stressed is because I had all these bills. And part of why I had all these bills is because I had all this big old house and I had to have all these things and I had to maintain them all and they all costed money. And I realized I don't even care about most of this stuff. I don't even want most of it. And so I just started going, I'm going to downsize my life and start over. And as I did that and I rebuilt my life, I rebuilt it in a way that was less stressful. If you had asked me why I was doing it, I would have said, it's because I'm rebooting myself from a materialistic standpoint. I've become too much of a materialist and I want to become more of a minimalist in nature because I want to have less things to worry about and I want more freedom in life. And having less things gives me more freedom. I started calling my possessions anchors. These anchors kept me stuck in this house because if I had to have a home to put all these things in. And when I got rid of the things, all of a sudden, I didn't need the home either. I could go to something much smaller and get exactly what I wanted. I was doing it to make my life better. I didn't know at the time. Like if you go in my video journal, that's what I'm talking about. I never once mentioned it and connected to my weight loss. It was later when I started really unpacking and working through the emotional eating that I began to see, okay, that helped me overcome my emotional eating because I was inadvertently removing a massive amount of stress in my life that was compelling me to go eat. And when the stress was gone, I just didn't want to go eat because the stress was gone. So I guess, so again, not that I was lucky, but I was competent in the area of my weight loss, but I wasn't doing it for the weight loss, if that makes sense.
But also you just had the courage to follow your intuition and to follow the breadcrumbs that were leading you forward.
Mm-hmm.
At what point on that journey did you started making progress? When did you say, maybe I could help other people have this same kind of transformation that I'm currently experiencing? When did that happen?
It was when I crossed 100 pounds lost. That was a big enough number that people would really like, you've lost 100 pounds? I was still on the journey, still losing. And then people would see my before pictures. It was a big enough transformation that I rarely had to bring it up. Other people would bring it up. And my coworkers were seeing me melt away. And when you lose a lot of weight like that, even though it was stupid slow, people just took notice. If you do something really well, people are going to take notice. And so people started asking me, hey, how did you lose weight? And right away I was like, I don't know how to answer that. I'm like, that's a big question. So I just started telling them I diet and exercise. That's not the answer. That's like saying, how did you save up $5 million for retirement? I earned and saved. Like, that's about as helpful of an answer as that. Like, it tells you nothing. It's true, but it tells you nothing. And because I didn't know how to explain it to him, because I was like, This is a lot I got to teach you." Because I wasn't chasing a fad or a quick fix diet anymore. I was literally changing my life, and I was putting into practice all the things I had learned. And so people started asking for help, and I was like, we need to have some conversations. And so we started having conversations, and I was having this talk with this one guy, and he's like, "So how are you losing weight?" So I was explaining what I was doing. He goes, "That sounds a lot like this." And he pulls out this DBT book, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. He goes, "That's like this." And he flipped it. He goes, "You're doing this exercise." And I was like, "Never heard of it. I've never heard of DBT." And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing this." He goes, "That's this exercise." And I'm looking, I'm like, that is what I'm doing. I was just figuring it out. You'll start to see a lot of DBT stuff is in a lot of personal development books. So it makes sense why I picked it up. Like, I read it and it bounced around in here and it came out later. And, but that was a fascinating thing. I was like, wait, you're like buying books to learn how to do what I just know how to do? And I was like, I wonder if I could tell people this. And I was talking to this person. I was like, and he's like, have you ever thought about helping others like more formally? And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not a nutritionist. Like, I don't have any certifications or anything like that. And he's like, you know what you're doing, though. I'm like, I know. He's like, what about helping some people for free? And now that I'm like, oh, that takes all the pressure. That takes all, I'm not going to make it worse. Like, free, I can do free. And I was posting on TikTok at the time just to keep myself going. And so I was like, I put on a call. I was like, hey, if anybody, I'm going to offer to help. Anybody that wants help, I'm going to take 4 people, send me an email to this. I made up an email address that send me an email to this email address with your story. I'm going to whittle it down to 12 people. I'll interview you and I'll whittle it down to 4. Cool. I thought I'll cherry pick. I took on 4 people and we started getting results. And I was like, okay, I guess I can do this. Like, it started working. It was tricky, but like I knew the mechanics of how to lose weight. And so that's what I started doing. I was teaching the mechanics of weight loss. I wasn't teaching anything mindset. It was just like, you want to lose weight? Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's what you need to do. Because when you do it for a couple of years, you learn a ton. The reality is I know more than what most nutritionists know, because when you lose that much weight that slowly, you learn it with hands-on experience. Like, you just learn it. And as I kept going through that, I was like, wow, there's a lot of value here. But I started noticing there was a difference between me giving someone the mechanics and them actually going off and doing it. That was very much up to the individual. Some people would do it, some people wouldn't. And many people that do what I do, they just say, hey, if they didn't do it, no biggie. It just wasn't the right time for them. I'm not the right person. They put all of it on them. And that is totally okay. I get it. But for whatever reason, who I am, that didn't work for me. I felt compelled almost. I felt called to go, but I'm worried about the ones that won't do it. Because I started seeing there are those that want to lose weight and there are those that want to lose weight. And I started realizing that's who I want to talk to, because that was me. I wanted to want to lose weight for so much of my life. I didn't actually want it, though. I wasn't willing to do anything about it. And I'm like, I somehow closed that gap from wishing I could want it to actually wanting it. And I wanted to help people do that. And so I started moving. That's where I discovered that that's where the real work really kicks in. The mechanics are easy, but that's where the real work kicked in.
And I think that explains my own journey working with you. In the last podcast, which I'll put a link to in the show notes that you guys can listen to, I talked about some of the results that I have. I'm at that point where I no longer want to lose weight. I just want, and it's not even losing weight. I want to be healthy. And that want and desire, that gap has closed now. And I'm doing things differently now than I ever have before, in a more healthy way, in a way that's not going to leave me with any kind of eating disorder or things like that, because my desire's there. My wish was there in the beginning, and I was willing to follow through with action on it. But now the desire is really there. I feel more unstoppable now in that area of my life than ever before. So I unknowingly, with what you just said about the people that you wanted to work with, I'm like, that was totally me, because I was so adverse to even caring about my own body.
People write folks like that off.
It's because we write ourselves off. Of course, other people write us because we write ourselves off.
Whatever reason, I felt compelled to go down that path. So that put me But that's how I started, but it ultimately led to me getting there. But that was like a year-long journey to find myself to that realization. That's the individuals I want to serve.
What's interesting though is you're following intuition every step of the way. Someone suggests something to you, it resonates, feels like a good idea. Even TikTok, you posted on TikTok just to share your journey. That was an intuitive response that happened and you followed through with it. So you just found yourself, it looks like you were more willing to take more risks and do different things because what do I have to lose? I might as well try it. Could you coach people? Sure. Might as well try it and let's see. You experimented where I think most people in a routine, they don't experiment and play with life. You started playing with life, right?
I did. And I actually know what you're talking about. I know where it came from. So here's the cool thing. When you said you were going to teach me how I did what I did, when I was going through thinking into results, a lot of it was me. Yeah, I wanted to apply it to where I was, but I was more interested in trying to deconstruct what I did. Bob talks about in his program how he couldn't understand how he changed his results so drastically, and he became obsessed with understanding how he did it. And then once he became obsessed with how, he wanted to tell everybody about it. That's very much mirrors my experience. When he said that, I was like, yeah, that's how it feels for me. Like, I need to know how I did this. Like, I need to know the mechanics because I want to replicate it with others, but also with myself. So let me give it, here's the cool thing. Earlier on in my weight loss journey, this would have been in the, when would I have discovered this? Would have been 2020. I don't remember exactly when. It would have been summer or early fall. I believe it was summer. And I discovered a video as a montage motivation thing where they do like motivational speeches with really cool music and they'll do excerpts and stuff. But I stumbled on this one. Some of them are great, some of them are fine, but this one changed my life. And it opens up with a speech from Steve Jobs. And so I'll tell you the thing and then I'll tell you what I did with it. And you'll see exactly like why it worked. And I still remember the first time I played it. I was at the gym at Planet Fitness. It was back with pandemic. I had masks on, hoodie on, I had my headphones on nice and loud. So I was really very much in my own world. And I'm listening to this, and it's Steve Jobs, who I admire greatly as a businessman. As an individual, he's weird, but as a business person, I always admired his philosophies. And he said, somebody once told me that if you live every day as if it were your last, one day you'll most certainly be right. It made an impression on me. And every day since then, I asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what it is I'm about to do? And if the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. And it made an impression on me. He said, don't be trapped by dogma, which is the conclusions of other people's thinking. Follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what it is you truly wish to become. And then the thing goes on and does other things. But I just said, follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly wish to become. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I literally listened to that video 5+ times a week, every week for 18 months.
That's
the
it.
whole video. And then when I'm going through TRR and I'm learning about constant spaced repetition and I'm learning about the concept of repetitive listening to recondition your mind to start adopting new mentalities, I was like, that's what I did.
That's exactly
Without
what you
even
did.
realizing it, I had this whole collection of things that I used throughout my journey that if they were cassette tapes, I'd have wore them out. They would have literally stopped working. I listened to them so much. Like when I opened YouTube, it was just always the same handful of videos. I made a playlist of them and I just listened to them. Like I'd get in the shower in the morning and I'd hit play and I'd listen to it. The moment I'd feel discouraged, I'd hit play on that thing. I had certain songs I would listen to the music from and I just hit play on it just to get my mind in that state because I realized I can use my actions to dictate what was going on up here. And I didn't understand I was controlling my thoughts, which is in turn impacting my emotions, which is in turn impacting my actions. I didn't have any awareness of that, but I was still doing it. And that's what was so cool about TRR is because you helped me see that it works. And so I very much am still someone that follows my intuition. Anybody that works with me around me, I've had to tell them, I'm like, you have to understand, I will always tell you why I'm doing something, but you're going to find a lot of times the answer is because I'm trusting my gut. And because the moment I started trusting my gut and pairing it with analytical work, my life just took off like at warp speed from that moment, just trusting my intuition, because before I always second guessed it and I was too afraid to do anything.
And if anybody wants to tune in to that Steve Jobs speech, I think that's his Stanford commencement address that you can go find on YouTube
Yes.
and watch. Super powerful. I've seen that so many times. You did a pretty good job paraphrasing that because that's how much you listen to it, right? Over and over again.
Right.
We
Never
become what
actively
we
tried to
think. And so,
memorize it.
no, that's just accidental based on all the repetition. We become what we think about all day long. And so you want to find those thoughts that are in alignment with where you want to go and tune in over and over again. And I bet you the part that hooked you on that commencement address, that little part, was living your day every day like it might be your last, because it was motivated by your
Mhm,
dad's passing. But that next
mhm.
part about listening to your heart snuck in subconsciously over, and you just started to think that way and started to act that way. And your results are a testament to following intuition. That's amazing.
100%, I agree, you're right. No, that is because it wasn't the intuition that I latched onto in the beginning, it was what you
Mm-mm.
said, it was the death thing. Because I was very much I think people don't think about their death enough, to be honest.
I agree.
I think about my death every single day, and my life has become immeasurably better ever since I started daily contemplating my end.
You need to pick up this book, Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller.
Okay?
This is about a life mission. He's got a fantastic exercise in here that starts off writing your obituary. He says, all stories have a climactic scene, right? And a good story, a good movie is built around foreshadowing that scene. There's events and actions and things that create that. The ultimate climactic scene of your life is what other people say about you when you're gone, and the testament of how you've lived your life. If that's the end scene, if your death is that end scene, start there so that you can reverse engineer your life. And so that every day you wake up putting something on the plot of your life, foreshadowing the end result of the obituary. And he actually has a morning ritual built around this where you start your day reading your obituary and
So
using it to motivate you.
I did a eulogy.
You did? No way.
Yeah, I have actually I have a podcast where I guide people through the exact same exercise I did. It's a guided meditation or guided journaling exercise. Yeah, literally contemplating because when I wrote my dad's eulogy and I got to have it read to him before he died.
Oh,
He got to read what I was gonna read at his funeral, and that made me consider my own, and then when I was in the room, seeing the impact that he had on these people's lives, people I'd never heard of, coming out of the woodworks, filling this church up. People didn't live there, but it was because of the impact he had on their lives, and I was like, "That's a valuable use of time, being alive, is doing these things." And so I started and in that same video I was telling you about with the Steve Jobs thing, there's another part in it that I really latched onto, and it talks about one of the guys says he has this vision of his vision of the end is he says, I want people to be standing. I can't remember. It's like either standing in the parking lot or you can't even fill up the churches. You can't even get people in the churches so full. And I was like, what you just described, I can tell you for me, just anecdotally with my individual experience, contemplating my end has given me that transformative effect because it makes you seriously stop and think about life. And I even think about the other concept of 1,000 years from now, no one's going to know I existed. Not by
right.
my name. I regularly am quoting and reading books and things from people that were, alive many, many years ago. Marcus Aurelius. You know what? I know a lot about what he wrote, but I don't know anything about the man. I don't know anything about him. I don't know what his sense of humor was like. I just know what he wrote. I know pieces of the man. The reality is no one will know me 1,000 years from now. And when I start thinking about these things, it makes it easier for me to follow my intuition. It makes it easier for me to do what it is that I want to do because I realize I'm like, the only person that is going to be with me my entire life is me. Yeah. No one else. Everybody else is a supporting character in my play, and I'm a supporting
And
character in all theirs.
and once you have that discovery and you can own your life, that's when the magic starts to happen. That's when all the pain starts to
Totally.
fade, because then you get to decide what it is you want by design, not by default.
I'm studying right now paradigm shift specifically. It's been a minute since I've circled back around to it, and I got right here some notes I was writing down on intuition. I was reading from this book from Joel Barker.
Mhm.
This is my dad's copy.
Yep.
Here's y'all. Hold on. This is why I love marking books. I now mark my books up like crazy and I write little notes in the margin. This is my dad's copy and he highlighted it, dogged the pages, wrote notes. This is what I did. Oh, I wonder how I'll do and I never knew he read this book till I went through all his books at the end. And it's like he's helping teach me later with his copy of the
Ooh.
book. It's just so cool. So y'all mark your books like they're breadcrumbs to those that are going to follow behind you. But anyway, so I'm reading this. He talks about this concept of a paradigm pioneer, which I love. He says, paradigm pioneers have the courage to act on their intuition. And he references something in that same chapter called intuitive judgment, which is the ability to make good decisions with incomplete data, often referred to as gut level, seat of pants, from the heart, gut feeling, following the spirit. And a paradigm pioneer is okay with incomplete understandings. And then this is my own thoughts with it. This is faith in our ability to adapt to ever changing conditions. And the more I really thought about that, like we have to be willing to follow our intuition, because if you're always waiting for a perfect straight shot to get to where it is you want to go, it's like you're going to just be waiting forever, because it never works. And he mentioned there are these people that you're always saying, "Oh, I saw that already. Oh, I thought of that 5 years ago. Oh, I remember thinking this way," but yet you're still getting the same old results. And it's the reason why you're that way is because you just had no guts. You had no guts to follow your intuition. That means your intuition would have been right if you would have just followed it. So when are you going to start following it?
Yep.
And that's really where I was. It's just had to find courage.
So with all this remarkable transformation that you had on your own or with the support of how you were raised and how you were thinking, what was it? What were you thinking? What were you feeling before we started working together? What was the gap you were trying to close?
Oh, for me, it was professionally. I was really struggling with my name being the brand of my business. My whole career had always been, I'm selling a company name. I'm selling a company service to other companies. I had never been in the B2C world, business to consumer, never done that. I'd always been B2B, business to business. And I'm selling a whole team. I'm always selling an established company. I'm with processes, like I have certain guarantees of what you can expect. And I knew startups are rougher, and I know they're always evolving, and I knew that, but I really struggled with it being my brand. And the other problem I struggled with is there's no certifications for what I do. Like the way I teach weight loss, I've looked. I can't go anywhere to get certified. People are like, what about a personal trainer? I'm like, personal trainers aren't weight loss coaches. They're personal trainers. They have understanding of weight management, but they're not weight loss coaches for those that have triple digits to lose. People say, go be a nutritionist. I'm like, they definitely don't understand it. Once I learned about what it takes to be a nutritionist, you don't even have to be certified. There's literally nothing in this country stopping me from giving myself the label of nutritionist. No one could do anything to stop me. I could just say I'm a nutritionist. I'm in the state of Arkansas. It's ridiculous. Some states, you got to get a certification from an accredited place, but it's $400. Like, it's so easy to get it. You can go get a weight loss certification. I actually bought the program from NASM and I read through it. I was like, this isn't what I teach. This isn't how I approach weight loss. Some people say, go do life coach certifications. I went and looked, I'm like, I'm not a life coach. I'm a weight loss coach. And yes, I touch on all of these things, but I'm a weight loss coach. That's what I do, is I help people change their lives so they'll stop being triple digit overweight, and they can do it, and they can move on to something else in their life and go work on what other projects they want to do beyond it that you've never even pondered, because you can't fathom a life where this isn't in your life as a problem to solve. And so when I was coming to you, the imposter syndrome for me was at levels I had never before experienced, so much so that I didn't know you could experience it that much. It was an entirely new experience for me. I had never struggled with sales. I had never struggled earning money, ever. I was struggling bad. I did have some bad things with money that I was coming in. We don't have time to get into it. There's some long stories that go into it with just some experiences I had, experiences watching with my dad, experiences watching with business, where I developed a bit of an unhealthy fear to having too much money. See, even right there, what does the phrase too much money even mean? That couldn't even, if you'd have pressed me, I wouldn't have been able to really answer it.
But I love that. I love that moment of vulnerability as well, because we never really know what we believe until we put words to it. And then now we have something that's out there that I've got to analyze and go, do I really believe that there's such a thing as too much money? And where the hell does that come from? And how do I even untangle it?
What is that number even?
Seriously. It's so funny how we believe things, which was the episode that we did last week for your podcast. And I'm glad you used the word imposter syndrome. We had this conversation in our coaching group on Sunday in Thinking in Results. Chris has been done for 9 months or so with the program. But the conversation we had, there's a woman in the group right now that says, I don't think I like imposter syndrome as a phrase, because it emphasizes that we're not who we need to be. It emphasizes the gap. It emphasizes that we don't belong. And she was challenging me. She's like, how do we refer to it differently? How do we change the name on that? I'm curious. This is just spontaneous in this moment. Like, how could we relabel that in a positive way that identifies the problem, but doesn't reinforce that you're an imposter. Does that make sense?
So I want to make sure I'm hearing. The person you're mentioning dislikes the use of the word imposter syndrome because it creates a mental focus on the word imposter.
On that I don't
Okay.
belong here.
Right. Saying, okay, all right, because you're still using the word imposter and every time you use it, you reinforce the word imposter.
Correct. This is why affirmations don't have negative things in it, because you can subconsciously still reinforce and strengthen the lack ideology. Imposter syndrome is lack language.
Yeah, I guess so. First, I'll say the reason why I still use it, but I hear what you're saying. I've never really thought of it in those terms before. The reason why I still use it is I'm saying like, because in my mind, I'm like, I am feeling like an imposter. And then now I'm doing the work of I'm not an imposter. Like it's stating the disconnect. But you're right. If you don't have it, when we all say, oh, I have imposter syndrome, we don't understand the disconnect because I didn't either. Huh. I suppose for me, I would say maybe if it's not imposter syndrome, I'm going to talk out loud. Mine was derived from a few things. One of them is it was the who am I thing. Who am I to do this? There's so many people that are better than me at this. Like, why should I be
Right.
doing it when they could just go to all these people that are already better than me, that have been doing it longer than me, that are more established than me? So there was very much that. It was a comparison syndrome, maybe.
Yep.
Or relentlessly comparing myself to others. It was also derived from self doubt, doubting whether I could do it. But it was honestly, if anything, I had to say, for me, a lot of my imposter syndrome can always be traced back to I'm afraid of things. It's fear. I'm afraid of what? And it could be different things. Like in this case, I'll just be honest. Like one of my fears I'm always trying to push away and deal with and work through. I think we all have our things. Mine is, and I'm sure you'll get this one, Todd. I get terrified of getting canceled online by somebody soundbiting something I said out of context and then people piling on. Because I've already discovered, I've tested this just to see. People will not listen to you and they'll just take one thing you said and then believe what they believe and then tell you said it and then not listen to you. And you're like, but I didn't. And here's the quote that no, people don't care. People just cancel the mess out of you. So I would worry about that. And then I was worried about doing harm to people, letting people down. But ultimately, a lot of my imposter syndrome would be derived from I was concerned and worried with what other people would think of me. So
Fear of criticism of others. That's that being liked. That's the other side of being liked, is being hated, being afraid of rejection, right? I don't know what to call it. I think I might be referring to it as I write my own programs, maybe as a self-image gap, which is more emotionally neutral, right? That's really what it is. It is, but it's
I
that.
see myself in one way. Yeah. I would say it's like you see yourself in one way, but it doesn't match who you think you're supposed to be.
Yeah, it is a
it?
gap of expectation too. It is false expectations and the expectations of others. Yeah.
The challenge I come in though is I think imposter syndrome is not necessarily bad because to be honest, that very painful feeling of feeling like an imposter
Was motivating.
compelled me to go study and to overcome my knowledge gaps really rapidly. So I don't know that it's necessarily bad that I felt like an imposter. I think I needed to because by all accounts, there were certain claims if I had been making them, like there are claims that I make now that if I had made them 2 years ago, I don't know that would have been right for me to do that. Because I couldn't have backed it up. There's claims I can make now because I can back them up. I can deliver on the promises. Like their promises, and I see people do it in coaching all the time. They go make people, their life is a hot mess. They can't manage them. They can't rub two quarters together and they're out doing abundance coaching on money. I'm like, I get it. But I'm like, but you should feel a little something. I'm not saying don't go out and start helping people. I'm just saying you also need to be fixing that because you need to be congruent.
Right.
And if you can't get yourself to do it, how can you get someone else to do it? So I don't know that I would say it's all bad that I feel it. I think it becomes a problem if you're unwilling to move past it.
Yeah.
And I think I think you need a coach though to help you with that. I don't know that I could have done that by myself.
Why not? Why could you have not done it by yourself?
All right, that's not fair to me. I could have. I did it faster with a coach because there were many times where you said something to me that I just said, I don't fully believe in me, but Todd believes in me. So I'm just going to lean on that. I trust that if he didn't think I could do it, he would counsel me to say, hey, maybe you're biting off more than you can chew. There's a big trust factor there. So I think that's helpful. But even then, right? Fail forward, right? Mess it up, fix it, move forward. But it definitely accelerated my results having a coach, like 100% because of that. I would have progressed slower.
And let's talk about that. What did you feel and what did you experience while going through that program?
Oh, it was fun because I didn't understand about repetitive listening, the power of it, like where you listen to the same thing every day. And one of the first assignments, or the first assignment you had me do, was you gave me things to listen to every day. And I had a morning practice of listening to things, like it was a study hour. So what I started doing is whatever your assignment was, I just hit play and I listened to that then. And I just changed it out. Now you would give me the assignment to listen to it in the morning and the evening. My lifestyle was such, and I'm ADHD, so I have a tendency to forget things. Like I use alerts and stuff. The problem is if I forget to put it in the alert, it's going to get forgotten more than likely. So what I decided, I'm like, all right, well, what's the spirit of what he's telling me? The spirit I take is listen to it all the damn time. All right, I can do that. So I might have a day where I did the listening exercise 6 times. I might not listen to it at all the next day. But what I was doing was just wearing out the tape to the point that was like, one more time. But then what I started doing is I would slow it down to 50% speed. A lot of people want to speed it up. I started slowing it down. So I'm listening to Bob. He's like, and a paradigm is when you, it's just so painfully slow. But I would hear things I never heard before. And then I would listen to it at 1x or 1.5 times, 2 times speed. And then I would listen to it and I would literally write down the entire video. Like I have several of the videos. I sat down with it and by hand wrote out the whole video. So frustrating. And I had to rewind it, back it up, listen to it again, rewind it because I wanted to get it word for word. And what was cool, I still remember this happening because I was really noticing it was affecting my head. And then when you started talking about the stick person, when I first saw it, I was like, all right, this is goofy. And it's funny, y'all, really, I'm like, this is the goofiest looking thing I've ever seen. And y'all, literally right before this meeting with Todd, I'm doing a paradigm shifting course, and a part of it includes a stick figure, the stick person. Like I've gone
awesome.
from one end to the other. I get it, but I'm seeing this. And then I remember one night I started having dreams about the damn thing. It started sinking into my head. I started waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning and I couldn't go back to sleep because what was happening is all of a sudden I was getting it. There were
Yep.
concepts. I was like, oh my gosh, get it. I see what I'm doing. I see what I'm not doing. I see why this worked. I see how this needs to happen. I see like concepts just started making sense, which just got me even more excited. And so those videos in there, I just devoured them constantly. I'd watch them or I'd listen to them. I'd play them in the car while I drove. I'd go on runs and hit play. It was just constantly listening. I might find a favorite one and then not let it go. Like, even though you'd give me other listening ones, I'd include the old ones still. Like the Terror Barrier, I just listened to it constantly. And then I was also attending, you and I were doing one-on-one, which I
Yep.
don't know how you do it with other people. I just know for me, what was really helpful is I needed to ask questions and I needed to show my beliefs and defend them to you and let you try to rip them apart, which was frustrating for me sometimes. And I'm sure for you too, but it was really helpful because there were many times I'd get off the call being like, wow, I really did not do a very good job defending my beliefs. Maybe I don't believe it as much as I think I do.
Or maybe they're indefensible.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's maybe my explanations aren't holding water because I would literally prepare for days for our session. Like, all right, I'm going to show Todd. I'm going to tell him how this is because I was willing to be wrong. I just convinced me. And I'd get off the calls and I'd be like, wow, like you one time did this. You talked me through what money is. And
Yeah,
it was
I
very
remember
helpful. That was very helpful for me to hear how you explained money to me and what it is and where it comes from because I was working through money issues. And I was like, okay. And I was really resistant to it. Like that took many months before it fully sank in, but I just kept thinking about it. And then you had your group coaching, which I was attending. For me, what was helpful for that in my firsthand experience was it was a chance for me to share my beliefs in front of a group and see how a group would respond. That was very helpful. Because again, I'm looking to, if people disagree, I want to hear it. If people agree, I want to hear it. Like I was trying to use your program to gain a deeper understanding. But what was really fun was to listen to other people working through things because they were solving problems I didn't have. And because I was hearing them use the same material to solve problems I didn't possess, I was seeing how the material could be applied differently, which gave me a more three-dimensional understanding of the material. So that was an
Wow.
incredibly beneficial aspect to have.
I don't think you've ever explained it that way because I feel like the people that see somebody on the hot seat in a group coaching, the witnesses, the gallery, so to speak, I feel like they almost get more out of it. And it's seeing the material and the concepts manifest in different ways with different people, with different details of their conditions and circumstances, self-image, goal, all those things. And it forces you to understand the material at a deeper level. And when you do, then you can reapply the material to your life in new ways. Like I'm listening to your story, I'm going, that's a TIR principle. That's a TIR principle. I'm pointing it all out here and there. because if you really understand the principle, you can see how it shows up everywhere. And then you can use it with intention
Mm.
where you become even more powerful then, or a more intentional creator.
Oh, 100%. And a lot of when I was going through TIR, I was looking at my life and going, that's this. But what was cool is I was like, I now understand why it worked and I could go duplicate it. I could go use the same mechanism again. Like when I began to understand the concept of reconditioning my mind with the constant space repetition of a new idea, whenever I would identify something in my life I don't want, I realized quickly the answer isn't to figure out how to demolish that. The answer is to figure out what I want to think instead, and then literally just flood the airways of my mind with those new ideas and just literally choke out the other idea. It just never has a place to visit my head.
Yep,
Mm.
absolutely.
But that's from learning those techniques. And I was like, okay, this was really helpful. And the part that helped me the most, though, is I was both using the material to help me understand my past, but I was simultaneously in the pursuit of a goal that was equally as daunting and as challenging as losing the weight. And so I was able to practice transposing the information into a new situation as I was doing it. It's a big part of how I was able to build the business. In the middle of the program, I completely retooled my entire company. I changed my whole business model.
That's what I was going to ask is what is it that you found? What were those results? Because I still remember it was probably like September of
Mhm.
that year after a while when I was more like a business partner at that time. Not that I'm a partner in your business, but I was collaborating on that level, consulting on that
Mhm.
level with reinventing your business. What were the shifts in results that changed in your business as a result of working through thinking and results?
So one thing I'll add that's very helpful with the group program, when I first came into your program and I saw the people that were in it, right away I was like, wow, these are some people I want to associate with. I was impressed by them. I liked them. Then what was cool is I got to hang out with them and see them in the group. I was like, oh, we're all just like each other. Like it humanized it, which was very important because it made it easier for me. I'm like, well, if you can be successful, there's no reason I can't be. I'm like, I'm just like you. You're just like me. Come on. I could do it. So that I got to add that component of it. What it did is it opened my eyes to consider other options. I started allowing myself to think a little bigger from where I was before. Or let me phrase that, not think bigger, believe bigger. I thought big, but I didn't believe big. And it allowed me to
Mm.
have a higher level of belief in my ability. And what I started doing, I remember we had several conversations in the program. We were talking about intuition. Interesting. We're talking about that today too. And for whatever reason, my gut just kept coming back to I'm not happy with my business model, but I'm happy with my mission. And there was a
Hmm.
disconnect and I had to solve this. And I knew if I just carried the question with me every day, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? How do I need to solve this? Where's the answer? The answer's coming. I'm like, the answer's here. I just got to keep searching and I'll know it when I see it. And answers would present themselves. And I'm like, and the way I would describe it, the way I describe it to people is I need to vibe with the answer. Like I need to, when I feel it,
You,
sometimes I'll feel like
you got to
it
feel it.
feels close. Yeah, it's not there, but it's close. And I'm looking for that feeling, even though it may need finessing, but I'm like, and then one day I had this thought. I was like, all of a sudden, a whole bunch of old life experiences clicked, and I saw it, like just like the vision of my body that I wanted. I saw this vision of the type of service I wanted to provide, and I saw how I could do it in the way that was unique to me, that worked with my offering. And I was like, I can see it. I can see this whole vision. And I was like, I got to retool everything right away.
So that's again, I love you talking about waking up at 3 in the morning, dreaming of the stick person, and like all these clicks happen. It's like all of that collapsed into a new idea for your business.
Mhm.
That again, which by the way, just like your life, nuking your life, you didn't really nuke your old business model, but you did. You totally let go of everything. So you had already demonstrated a pattern and a habit of letting go of the old you, letting go of the old faith, letting go of the house, the relationship. And so you were already primed and ready to let go of the old way of doing business. Bob always says, and he says it more in seminars, build a new model that makes the old one obsolete. You built a new model of your
Mhm.
business and let go of the old one.
And I'm a big, again, going back to the repetitive ideas, that video I was listening to, there's this part that Will Smith's the one talking about it. He says, there's no reason for plan B because it just distracts from plan A. You need to decide who you're going to be, how you're going to do it, and just go do it. And then there's the old analogy, Cortez sailed his army across the sea, then burned the ships and said victory is the only option because we can't go home. It's that sort of thing. And I very much, with my weight loss and with many other parts of my life, had seen the benefits of being willing to just set fire to the old ships and just be like, can't return to these. Bridge is nuked. And so, yes, with my business, when I say what I did is I immediately stopped signing new clients immediately. Like I
Which
had
is
built a
counterintuitive when
six-figure
you're trying to
one-on-one.
grow a business.
I had a six-figure one-on-one coaching service. I had comfortably replaced my income with one-on-one. But I didn't like it. I didn't like the life balance because I was working because I discovered to do that with one-on-one, you either have to charge a ton or you have to meet with a bunch of people. And I wanted to meet with a bunch of people because my mission is volume of people. So I had to lower the price, but then I'm working like crazy. And so I was like, okay, I need bigger. Like it was just always bigger, more people. And when the idea came of the Guild, which is my membership group coaching format for teaching weight loss, I remember thinking like any minute I spend on this one-on-one is a minute I'm not spending on my new dream. And it's just a distraction. And right away, the problem was my brain was like, yeah, but the one-on-one pays the bills. And I'm like, yeah, we got savings. And they're like, but we've already got enough savings. I'm like, well, we've already done it once. We can do it again. Like in the last time it worked out, it'll work out this time too, I'm sure.
Right.
I had to
Right.
really talk myself into it, but to finally I made the conscious decision, no more new clients. And I didn't sign any new clients. I don't remember. It was a long time before I signed on another client. Outside of the ones I had already had, I kept the ones I had a relationship with, but no one new came on the board. And as attrition took over, I just didn't replace them. And there were several times, especially when the January came around, everything inside him is, dude, you're supposed to be signing clients right now. You're in the weight loss industry. This is your Super Bowl time. You need to be signing one-on-ones. You should be doing it. Like everything in my brain is telling me to do it. Everything I'm reading is telling me I should do it. You actually told me I should do it. But in my brain, I'm like, I can't. I'm going to stop sales. Like I'm going to stop them. Like it felt nuts. It just felt nuts to do it. I'm like, I don't care. It feels right. As nuts as it feels. So I did it. And two more times, I literally one time I wrote out a whole one-on-one program, designed the sales page, designed the workbooks, all of it. And then I got time to go put it live. And I said, no. I sat down with a meeting with myself. I'm like, why are you doing this? And I was like, it's because I'm afraid I'm not going to make enough money. I'm like, so you're making this out of fear? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, so what are you going to do? I was like, I can't go live with it. I'm like, it's just going to distract me from the new Guild, because I was this first year of a new thing. I had to really nurture it and take care of it. It was fragile. And I pushed it to the side. It's just sitting there. I haven't touched it. Just sitting there waiting. We to dust it off. But it's just my intuition kept saying, just go all in on this, like all in. And honestly, if I hadn't have gone through the TIR, I might not have trusted myself, because I had an awareness that now this was coming from my subconscious, bringing forth the answer that I had been chewing on for a long time.
And let's be honest about results here. It's really important to understand that probably what you bill in 2 months is what you earned in an entire first year of coaching, right? Is that safe to say?
My first year of coaching, I now surpassed my first year of coaching in just 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
it's much
six
better.
six times the revenue in your business.
And I had my business. I've hired 2 business analysts to come look at my business to help me for future proofing. And as I'm doing my next strategic planning, both of them said I'm way further ahead than anybody they ever see doing what I'm doing. And a large part of it, though, is both the past, the background. Again, I am a second generation entrepreneur, so I have a lot of knowledge I was given in that regard. But the concepts I learned in TIR allowed me to learn how to leverage myself with those concepts, because the concepts didn't do me any good if I couldn't get myself to do them, because the concepts of how to run a business, I knew them a long time ago. I ran other people's businesses and did just fine. But running myself, it was the me in the mirror that was holding me back from all of it. And going through the program with you, what it did is it helped me. If I had to take away the biggest concept that I learned from the whole program, and I'm sure everybody has their thing, but there's one for me that I knew it, but I didn't. When I say I knew it, but I didn't, like I abstractly understood the concept, but I never could have explained it to you, and it never would have came out of my mouth. And it's when Bob held up the book and said, there's nothing printed on the cover of the book, talking about the multiple sides to see everything. And I had undergone paradigm shift. I knew you could see an issue from multiple angles. but I didn't truly understand how everything has multiple sides to it. Everything I see, there's another way to see it. There's a way to see it that's tangential to how I see it, and there's a way that's polar opposite to how I see it. There's a way that's perpendicular to how I see it. And that also meant myself. I didn't understand myself correctly, I realized. It meant I was looking at me, Chris, through one direction, from one point of view. And I thought I knew who I was. But going through the program helped me realize I didn't have a clue because I was only looking at myself from one side. And as I started to understand how multifaceted I am, not because I'm me as a unique person, it's because I'm a being. It really started to help me see the world differently. It helped me see people differently. It uniquely positioned me to be able to handle a community with so many different people where I am jumping into the fray of paradigm of people that are the polar opposite of me on the paradigm. Like when I talk about people that want to lose weight, and I know you do too, I get hate online.
Oh, yeah.
My hate online comes from overweight people who are convinced of their lot in life. That's where the majority of my hate comes from. And it can be cruel, the hate. And it's because what I'm saying is against their paradigm. It's the opposite perspective. They're looking at this side of the book and I'm looking at the other side of the book. And I'm trying to tell them about my side and they can't accept that there's another side to the book. If I hadn't have gone through TIR, I wouldn't have been able to psychologically handle it because even with it, that frustration has
It's
almost
hard.
driven me out of this line of work many times where I'm almost said, it's not worth it. It's not worth it taking all this hate, trying to help people. But it's allowed me to go, this is just what happens. I was just like them and it's okay. It's just how they see it. I don't need to take it personal. And the TR program gave me that. That was a big deal for me.
What is a word of encouragement that you could give to
Okay.
somebody that's standing on the precipice of their change and they want to do something, they want to nuke their old life, or they want to sign up for Thinking in Results, or they want to start their own business, or what word of encouragement could you give them?
There's no one right way to live. And any moment, you're allowed to change your mind on how you're living your life. And it is okay to be happy and to love your life, even though other people are suffering, even though it may change your life. Life has an attrition. I've come to realize you're always losing things. And I once used to look at that as a bad thing. The life's always taking. And now I realize it's an essential part of growth because life must take so that something new can take its place. And that line from Steve Jobs' speech, that commencement speech, follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what it is you truly wish to become. I think most people inside, we know who we want to be. We may not know how it looks, but we know how we want to feel about ourselves. We know how we would like others to think about us, even though we shouldn't be worried about it. If you are still worried about it, you know what it is you'd want them to be thinking. Nothing will happen if you don't do something. I had all the information I needed to create the body and life of my dreams 10 years before I made it happen. The difference was there was a couple of key lessons I didn't have, and I wasn't doing it because I was impatient. I wanted results now. I needed to extend my time horizon and stop thinking in terms of months, and I needed to start thinking in terms of years and decades, and realizing that the point of the game of life is to play, not to win. On the other side of a goal is just another goal. And on the other side of that one is just another one. And on the other side of that one is just another goal. So if on the other side of every goal is just another goal, why not set a really big one that's going to take a long time to get? And because you're going to accomplish every goal along the way and get all the joy and satisfaction and excitement that comes from the attainment of every single milestone on the way to the big goal. So why not? Life is so short. Planes crash, people die every day. Hell, Boeing planes have fallen apart midair. You might get sucked out of a plane these days. As terrible as it is to say. But if
crazy.
life could my life is not assured. I could just as easily get hit by a bus tomorrow as anybody else dying from old age. Nothing is guaranteed. And so your best bet is to just keep going.
What closing thoughts do you have regarding working together that you want to share with anybody?
A coaching relationship takes effort on both parts, and you will get out of it what you put into it. I say that as a coach and a coachee. I have a coach now, and the way I look at it with my coach, it's my responsibility to get what I need out of it. I show up with questions. I show up with answers that I'm wanting, and I show up to be challenged. And I show up to get alternative perspectives. So I would say that's the first part is don't be afraid to stand for what you know, but be open-minded enough to hear another perspective. And if a person goes through a TIR program, what I would tell anybody, fully attribute my results that I've had and how helpful it was because the material I ate, slept, drank it for 12 weeks. It was just, I was constantly consuming it and listening to it. I mentioned earlier how I would go through the recordings. And it's not because I was expecting it to transform me in a first listen, because it was just too information dense for that to happen. I had to listen to it over and over. So all the concepts were swirling around in my head till they clicked. But I also had to supplement it with my own study, like reading books like this. There's so many books you can read. I think I dove into psychocybernetics at that time as well. But it's a study. And I'm realizing that the mind is like an instrument. And the more you practice, the better you get at playing your instrument. The less you practice, the worse you get at playing your instrument.
Right.
And
Exactly right.
the Thinking and Results program, I think, is like a music school for an instrument, but for the instrument of the mind.
That's beautiful. Chris, where can people, well, actually, before you even say, so I want you to tell people where they can find you, but I want to tell you guys, if you have body issues, health issues, if you want to release weight, if you want to change your relationship with food, I would give no one on this planet higher accolades than Chris Terrell. And so I encourage you to find Chris, follow him, and just even if you even feel right now in this moment like you want to begin seriously a weight release journey, don't even bother with anything other than sign up for the Guild with Chris. But where do they go to do that, Chris? Where do they go to find you?
So you can go to theguildofchampions.com to check out the community, or you can go to tripledigitweightloss.com. That'll take you to my main website. It'll show you all the different links you can get to things. As Todd is saying, my mission that I'm working towards is I want to free the world of 100 million pounds. And I'm specifically looking to find those people that have given up. They're like, if this doesn't work, I'm getting weight loss surgery, or I'm going on Wegovy. Like, or I've tried those and it didn't work and I'm hopeless. I don't know what to do. That's what I'm working on. I want to help you all. And I've got an incredible community behind me that just is so welcoming to people coming in and helping. And if you're not sure about that, and if you just want to learn more about it, the best thing I tell folks to do is just go listen to my podcast. But the Chris Terrell podcast, you'll find it at the links that I sent, tripledigitweightloss.com, and you'll be able to just start listening. And if you're looking for a listening exercise, like I talked about the power of these repetitive listening things that I learned from Todd, I've got a podcast that I recommend people do. It's called Love Yourself Today. If you just go all the way to the beginning and scroll up, you'll find it in the first like 30, 40 episodes. If you listen to that once a day for a week, you'll be surprised how much differently you start seeing yourself in just a week of that. Love to have anybody come listen.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
And Todd,
we're going to
so
do this again.
Come be on your podcast. This was super fun.
Oh, it was great, man. We're going to do this again for sure at some point. And I think we should do this more regularly. I do think we should do a podcast together beyond our own individual shows. I really think we should.
Oh yeah. I think it'd be fun to really crack open some of these topics on a more granular, like really flesh some of it out. Even if an episode needs to be listened to 5-6 times because it's so much info in it, I think it'd be fun to do that. And I've been looking for a place to do something like that.
We'll figure that out. Thanks. I appreciate it, Chris.
You're welcome. Thanks, Todd. Thanks for the opportunity.
This does it for another episode of the Reprogram Your Mind podcast. I hope that was inspiring for you. I know it was a lot longer than a lot of episodes that I've done, but there's just so much value in those conversations. In the show notes, I am going to put a link to our podcast interview, the one that we did on the Chris Terrell podcast. So you can find that wherever you find podcasts. Tune in and listen to them. And I'm telling you guys, I can't say it enough. If you are struggling with weight loss, it's a lot more than diet and exercise. There's a mindset behind it. And Chris understands that. You want to reach out to him. You want to follow him. You want to listen to his podcasts. But definitely just sign up with him. It will be well worth it. Dive into his course material. Take some of his mini courses that he does for the Guild of Champions. I'm a part of it. I'm going to be doing a lot more in that group as well, just for my own journey. So I will see you in there. In the meantime, if you like this episode, if this helped you, in some way, please don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode of the Reprogram Your Mind podcast. You can check us out now on YouTube. Hopefully I'll be getting more episodes up there. So make sure that you're subscribed to that YouTube channel as well. And if you could leave a review, comment, review, because those reviews help this information get out to the people that need it most. There's a lot of people out there in the world that are stuck and struggling, just like Chris was. A lot of people that don't like themselves. A lot of people that realize, I don't want to live this way anymore, and they need to change. If you know any of those people, you might want to share this podcast episode or another one that you feel is more appropriate. And tell them this little secret. Say, hey, we become what we think about. And so do you.